out there with respect to Chicago. Do you think this change-up of is going to be a plus for Chicago? Is the Cubby fans going to have some opportunity for a trophy coming to Chicagoland?
Well, if you follow the history of baseball, the answer to that is absolutely not. So, but there is a very interesting thing that's going to be impacting fantasy baseball leagues in 2012, and that is the Houston Astros move to the American League. And this is one of those things you might be scratching your head thinking here in fall winter of 2011. Well, why do I need to worry about this? This isn't going to happen until 2013. Well, the reason why you need to think about it now, and your commissioner is going to have to make a decision here in the off season, is what are you going to do in National League only keeper leagues? And a keeper league is where you can retain players from one year to the next. What are you going to do in National League only keeper leagues with the Houston Astro players when they switch to the American League in 2013? Now, according to Bill James, we all know that there's a great impact when you switch leagues, especially on pitchers. On average, a National League pitcher going to the American League, where the DH is regularly used, his ERA increases by 0.45 points, and his strikeouts, due to not getting to face the pitcher once every 9 at-bats, goes down by 0.53 strikeouts per game. So this is going to be a real interesting situation in that you're going to have players switching leagues from, not just players, but a whole team switching leagues from the National League to the American League. And that's going to have a big impact, and that's something your league is going to have to consider here in the off season.
Do you like the new change-up of coming to Major League Baseball with an additional wild card?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I don't like it when the wild card does what it does this past year. You don't win your division, but the Cardinals got hot at the right time. They ended up being the World Series champions. I think this is going to put a little bit more pressure because they're probably just going to have a one-game playoff. So in the case of this year, they probably would have thrown their ace, Chris Carpenter, in that one-game playoff to really get into the play-in game, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And that's going to make it a little more difficult for the wild card team to win it all, and I think that's a good thing for baseball.
Yeah, this week's Fantasy Sports Report brought to you by BallparkSweaters.com. A ballpark sweater is a white sweater with nice red stitching. Looks real like a baseball or softball, and we'll be talking with more of the Benzes in just a few. We're going to take a break, Bob, and we'll come back and we'll pick up more of Fantasy Sports with you and John. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Fantastic. You're listening to Speaking Fantasy Sports with the Benzes, Bob and John Benz, the segment of Fantasy Sports brought to you by BallparkSweaters.com. Christmas, holidays around the corner, so think about that. You don't even have to leave your comfort of your home or your studio, your office, wherever you're listening to the show. Okay, guys, where do we want to go? I do have one of our producers here. Dan, let's start with that. Dan's got a quick question for you guys on his fantasy football.
Thanks, Benson. I got a couple quick questions. Aaron Hernandez or Tony Gonzalez is my tight end?
Oh, if you're making a lineup decision between Tony Gonzalez and Aaron Hernandez?
Yes.
It's hard to go against any of those, either one of those tight ends for the Patriots this year. Tony Gonzalez obviously has the history of being probably the greatest receiving tight end of all time, but for me it's really hard to advise against playing Aaron Hernandez. Tom Brady loves him in the end zone when they're in the red zone, so you gotta, in my opinion, this week you gotta go with Aaron Hernandez over Tony Gonzalez.
And all right, I have 5 wideouts on my team. You got to start 3. I got Denarius Moore, Antoine Bolden, Larry Fitzgerald, Wes Welker, and Percy Harvin.
Oh God, get the whole team just
out there. And how many do you get to play?
3.
3. Fitzgerald, because John Skelton actually throws it to him. Then you got to play Welker too.
Of course.
To me, those two were a given. And while Denarius Moore, Carson Palmer does like Denarius Moore. If you don't have return yards in your league, then I think a guy like Bolden is probably a smarter play than Denarius Moore. So the 3 that I would recommend there, real quick on the phone, would be, and free advice, take it for what it's worth. But I'd play Fitzgerald, Bolden, and Welker.
Thanks a bunch, guys.
Okay, well, you see, Dan Dan's into this stuff here. Of course, he just ate up like 4 minutes of your time here on the show. That's all right. No, that's all right, Dan. As long as it's helping out our family, that's all that matters. Okay, let's quickly move on. Let's talk a little bit about Brandon Jacobs. John.
Well, Brandon Jacobs this week, he is typically in a timeshare with Ahmad Bradshaw for carries for the Giants. Well, this week, it looks like Ahmad Bradshaw isn't going to play against Philly, and Philly does like to give up rushing yards. So if you can get Brandon Jacobs, and it looks like he's available in 1 and 4 leagues, right around 25%. If you can pick up Brandon Jacobs this week, he's probably going to get a full workload, so he's a good pick if you either have him on your bench or if you can pick him up in a pinch here on Saturday or Sunday for your matchup. Grab him and start him this weekend against the Eagles.
Okay, sounds good. John Bench, Bob Bench here on Spittle on Sports, Toy Fantasy Sports. Let's talk a little bit about, Maurice Morris.
Well, with Maurice Morris, Javid Best has a lot of trouble for the Detroit Lions staying on the field. He's great when he's on the field, but he has trouble staying there. Maurice Morris is going to get the start this week and probably get the bulk of the carries. And Carolina is actually the number 2 defense giving up points in fantasy football to running backs. Only one team gives up more points to running backs than Carolina. So you see Maurice Morris available in your league, and he's available in about 60% of fantasy leagues. Go out there, grab him, throw him in your lineup either as a running back 2 where you would normally play Javid Best, or as a flex running back, flex like a utility type position. Put him in there, and we're expecting big things out of Maurice Morris this week against Carolina. And then I have a couple notes here on quarterbacks. Do we have enough time, Pete?
Yeah, quickly, because I know Schaub, Castle, and Vic are out. Who do you got for your quarterback replacement?
Well, my favorite quarterback to pick up in replacement, if you're looking for somebody maybe for a little bit longer term, would be Carson Palmer for the Oakland Raiders. Now, Carson's shown the last couple of weeks against Denver and San Diego that he has a pretty good rapport with these wideouts. And he knows the system because it was his system in Cincinnati. The next 5 weeks, he's going up against Minnesota, Chicago, Miami, Green Bay, and Detroit. And all these teams give up yards against the pass. He's available in about 40% of leagues, so you have a really good chance to go grab him, especially if you've lost a guy like Castle or Schaub who's going to be out for the remainder of the regular season. Vic is obviously nicked up this week, but I think everybody expects that he'll be back, some point in the season to still help out fantasy teams. But if you need a replacement quarterback, Carson Palmer should be your go-to guy at this point in the year.
Hey, Bob, quickly, injuries and their effects on Sunday night, the Sunday night game, Eagles at Giants. Your thoughts quickly.
Yeah, well, I like Carson Palmer, too, this weekend, but another guy I think you want to keep your eye on is Vince Young. Vince Young has had over 60% completion rate in his time with the Titans. He's going to get his first chance to start in an Eagles uniform with Vic being out. And, Andy Reid's offense has always been very fantasy football friendly. And to take that to the next level, Donovan McNabb, the year before he was traded 2 years ago, was the number 9 top-ranked quarterback in fantasy football, and they got rid of him. So Reid with a lot of short passes. Young's going to be able to hit his targets. He does have one injury. Jeremy Maclin is also going to be out, the wide receiver. He has an AC injury. Riley Cooper is going to be replacing him, but the Eagles have a lot of threats. Deshaun Jackson hopefully went to the meetings this week, and he's going to be in the lineup. Jason Avant, Brent Selleck. So I like Vince Young this weekend.
Yeah, okay, fantastic, guys. Of course, this week's Fantasy Sports Report brought to you by BallparkSweaters.com. A ballpark sweater is a great gift for that little lady in your life. Of course, moms will love them, too. Go to BallparkSweaters.com. Check out this unique holiday gift. That's BallparkSweaters.com. Of course, check out my site, SpittlOnSports.com, where you can know more about the Bences and myself and more about the show. Okay, guys, you're out of here. Happy Thanksgiving to both of you and your families.
Same to you.
Thanks a lot.